Hello and welcome to JKL Psych. Today we're going to be talking about a hot button issue in modern education psychology, the use of ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis. Let's get started. Alright, if you know what Applied Behavioral Analysis, or ABA for short is, then you get a gold star. Well, actually no, but the idea is not far off from our topic today. So what is ABA? Well, if you've attended a primary school in the last 100 years, you've probably been exposed to it. Those gold stars and stickers, they're all there for a purpose. Simply put, ABA is a process in which you encourage or discourage a particular behavior. ABA is part of a focus of psychology called behaviorism. Originally started by this guy, B.F. Skinner, behaviorism focuses on the importance of the environment in behaviors. And no, not environment like trees and greenery, but the environment as in everything that influences that behavior. So if a kid is crying and the mother goes to comfort him, the kid's going to cry more, because his behavior got a positive response. Skinner's theories do get a little bit mind control-y later on, but that's neither here nor there. The important part about Skinner's theory for us is that you can influence behavior. Skinner, along with early psychologists like Pavlov, showed that you can influence future behaviors by providing a stimulus to the current behaviors. You may be asking, but where do the gold stars fit into this? Well, don't worry, because we're there now. So basically, you give a stimulus to a behavior that is either positive or negative, depending on whether or not you want to encourage or discourage that behavior. So for example, if you notice a kid isn't doing his homework, you can give them a gold star every time they bring you completed homework, thereby encouraging them to do their homework more often. Because who doesn't like gold stars, right? They're so shiny. The important way to do it is that you observe the environment to find out what's going on, you intervene so that you're enacting with the problem by giving them a stimulus, and then you observe again to see if it actually did anything or worked the way you wanted it to. There's two ways to influence a behavior from applied behavioral analysis. Like I mentioned earlier, you can reinforce a behavior, or you can punish. We'll start with the first one. Reinforcing a behavior means giving a positive thing or taking away a negative thing in order to make that behavior happen more often. This is when we start to get into the realm of candy and golden stars. See, there's positive reinforcement in which you are giving a reward for something, which is about as simple as it sounds. Do good behavior, get candy. And then there's also negative reinforcement, which you're taking away something bad. You'll notice your car does this a lot. You don't have your seatbelt put on, and it's got that annoying beeping sound. Put in your seatbelt, though, and the annoying beeping sound goes off. The important thing to remember about reinforcement is that you are trying to encourage a behavior, not take away a bad behavior. That's where positive and negative punishment come into effect. You punish when you're trying to decrease how often a behavior happens. So, for example, putting someone in jail is a good way of putting a negative punishment. You're taking away something good, specifically their freedom in this case. And then there's positive punishment. Now, this one we can't really use as teachers because it involves giving something bad, which could mean something like physical pain. So now that you understand how it works, the question for us teachers becomes, to what extent is it appropriate for schools and teachers to use ABA to shape behavior? So in order to get a better understanding of whether or not this is ethical, we're going to go and look at some of the pros and cons of actually using the strategy to find out if the benefits even outweigh the problems. So we're going to go over to Karen now, who's going to tell us a couple of the benefits.
Using ABA strategies in the classroom aims to help students develop a positive skill set that enables them to participate in classroom activities. A variety of positive skills that can be addressed and improved upon using ABA strategies include academic skills, language and writing skills, and social skills. ABA expands upon students' behavioral and self-monitoring skills to improve their communication, interactions with peers, and coping skills. ABA also offers a non-medicinal alternative to address behavioral concerns in children with autism. In order to address negative behaviors and reverse undesirable patterns, students need to be given an appropriate substitute for the negative behavior. By implementing ABA practices in the classroom, you can improve students' self-esteem, and this can lead to better performance in social situations beyond the classroom. ABA strategies allow educators and parents to set positive behavioral goals to replace negative behavioral patterns. From these goals and observations, parents and educators can examine how effective their current strategies are or what needs to be changed in order for them to become effective.
So as you can tell, there's a lot of benefits to using ABA as a teaching strategy and in the classroom in general. It can help students develop social skills and other complex things that they need to know to be, well, people. It's also worth noting that in all of the places where ABA is being commonly used in schools, and particularly with autistic children, it's being used in a positive manner. We're working with reinforcing positive behaviors instead of the less ethical and more problematic negative punishments and positive punishments. So, thanks for that, Karen. Now we're going to move over to Jenna, who's got a little bit of information on some of the issues.
Some of the disadvantages of applied behavioral analysis are qualifications, time, accuracy of research, and self-motivation. Effective applied behavioral analysis practices are performed by extensively trained professionals who hold a master's degree or higher. Teachers do not receive training or certification to properly implement the ABA practices in their classrooms. Certified ABA specialists are trained to be able to understand why a child behaves the way that they do, whereas most teachers do not understand where a particular behavior stems from, which is crucial to effective ABA practice. In order for ABA practices to be effective, they require implementation of at least 20 hours per week, an amount of time which teachers do not have. ABA practices need to be implemented in the child's home as well as at school as a life pattern in order to be effective. Teachers make the error of implementing ABA practices occasionally and randomly. Research suggests that to be effective, the ratio of praise to reprimand needs to be at least 3-to-1. Unfortunately, teachers most often practice praise to reprimand at a ratio of 1-to-1. There are issues with the amount of time, training, and personnel resources needed to effectively collect data on the extent to which ABA is effective in classrooms. Teachers' perceptions of usability of assessment measures on behavior are not consistent and change over time. Thus, ongoing assessments are required in order to collect supportive data to the effectiveness of ABA. ABA uses external motivators to foster good behavior in children. This may decrease intrinsic motivation because if there is no tangible reward or praise, the child may not see any point in doing it.
Thanks for that, Jenna. So now that you've seen some of the cons, you can tell that they're pretty extensive in some areas. The ethical question really comes into play when we talk about whether or not it's okay to let someone who isn't a trained expert in this field administer this kind of a process to children, especially considering that some of these effects can be fairly long-lasting, albeit not permanent. There's still a lot that a child can go through if this process is improperly administered, especially considering there is no outstanding organization that can ensure that applied behavior analysis at a classroom level is being done ethically. Now that you've got a good understanding about the pros and cons of using ABA, let's take a look at the age groups to see if that makes a difference and whether or not it's appropriate. Is this something that we can use with children, or is this something that shouldn't be used on children at all? Does it matter if they're in elementary school or in high school? We're going to go over to Becky now, who's got a little bit more information on appropriateness in the age groups.
The younger a student is when they are introduced to ABA, the more effective it can be. ABA is typically used with young children. Young children respond better to external motivation, like the use of stickers or candy. ABA can be used at all ages, so long as the external motivators are changed. For example, high school students may respond better to praise than stickers. But typically, the behaviors that ABA are trying to help a student acquire are taught at young ages. Things like not talking over others, helping classmates, and being polite are typically learned in elementary schools and carried through adulthood. Children between the ages of 2 and 7 are in the stage that Piaget called the pre-operational stage. One key concept of this stage is that children at this age are egocentric. They can't see the situation from another person's point of view, and they haven't grasped the social function of language or rules. As such, ABA's use of external rewards offers a far more effective way of changing a grade 1 student's behavior than trying to explain to them the feelings of those around them. At younger ages, these concepts may be hard for children to understand. For example, when a high school student plays a game, they play by the rules knowing that cheating puts the other students at a disadvantage. For a grade 1 student, they are unable to grasp the idea that other people don't see the world as they do. They play by the rules because an authority figure, like the teacher, tells them to. So is ABA a good technique to use with older students? Older students can get just as excited over external motivation as younger students do. However, older students probably have developed a better internal motivation, whereas younger students have not yet. Exclusively using external motivation at any age can also create unrealistic expectations. There will not be a reward for everything that you do in life. Older students can also be reasoned with. If their behavior is unacceptable, they probably know that it is unacceptable. And explaining why not only helps them to understand the effect that their behavior has on others, but it can also help them develop a moral sense of right and wrong. For younger students, many concepts like morality may go over their head.
Thank you, Becky. Now that we've considered the appropriateness in certain areas and where ABA is really most effective, we can have a better understanding about how appropriate and when it's appropriate for a school to be using ABA. For example, it's more effective in an elementary school or an environment with small children, and it's also very effective with children with autism. There's a ton of research out there suggesting that it really helps children with autism develop social skills. So is that an appropriate use of this technique in an environment which will help benefit the students in a ways which the parents can't do via time constraints or knowledge on the subject? Should this be done in schools, or should this be done in a dedicated institute which is specially focused? There hasn't been enough research done on this specific topic in schools to tell us whether or not this is truly appropriate for schools yet. So we need to decide whether or not this is something we want to move forward with and pursue, leave it in the place where it is, or just abolish it completely from the classroom. So now that you have enough information to understand how it works, when it works, and why it works, we can start to form our own opinions about whether or not this is ready for schools. In other words, this is something that's left up to the teachers. It's left up to you.